Hello from Linz, Austria. My name is Graham Buck. I'm part of the team at Treasury Management International, or TMI. I'm here attending the 2022 Tech Day held by the Austrian Corporate Treasury Association, or ACTA. I'm here with Thomas Keim, who is described as Principal Solution Architect for Serrala Group. Thomas, you gave a very interesting presentation on payment as a service. In your role, you're probably familiar with the biggest technical obstacles for corporate treasurers.
Yes, first of all, thank you for having me. Big obstacles are especially in the technical area. And when it comes to bank communication and also payments as a service, big international corporates, they don't want to maintain their own formats anymore in their ERP system. Also, they don't want to get in front of these technical things like bank communication, EBIX, SWIFT. For some of them, it's even not familiar. They want to do their cash forecasting, whatever they need to do as a treasurer, but they don't want to get into IT. And that's where vendors like Serrala step in and help them and take that away, that burden.
What would you recommend to corporate treasurers as best practice when it comes to bank connectivity?
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because there's no, let's say, good answer or bad answer, right? Because it always depends on the setup of the corporates. If you act very local with a one bank or two bank, there is no need to have another vendor doing that for you because then the format is set up, the connectivity is set up. However, what we're talking about here are rather bigger international corporates. And what their aim is, as I mentioned, is to streamline all those connectivity channels and also streamline the formats. In these days, there's a format out there, it's called ISO 20 or 22 CGI, based on XML. And that's what most corporates should use in these days. That's one.
I think we're coming up to the November 2022 deadline for that as well.
Exactly, that's what it is. And also in November 25, where SWIFT said already, there will be no empty messages anymore, at least in the banking space. And automatically, also the corporates will not make use of those empty messages, but XML. And the second advice, because you were asking for recommendations for corporates, is always to do an analysis on their current portfolio. That means either internally, but most of those corporates, they don't have the resources to do so. So get in contact with consultants to do an analysis on their bank portfolio, on what are my payment formats, how are my processes in other countries. Because if you think about a global treasury, sometimes they don't have a clue what's actually happening in other countries.
Now, security and fraud prevention, they've steadily risen up the corporate treasury agenda in recent years. Do you see them staying there in the years ahead, or because I suppose security is becoming more sophisticated, but so are the fraud perpetrators as well?
It does. And my personal opinion is it's not just raised because of the pandemic that was always there already, even years before. Right? We always had fraudsters out there. They tried to get into systems and try to manipulate things. And this for sure will stay, right? Because you always will have people try to manage something which is not legal. But specifically in these days, I think we had the opportunity, based on COVID-19, that you have more resources to put into the fraud prevention mechanism, right? And in payments system in these days, in my opinion, it's a must that you have a possibility to detect potential fraud payments.
Now, your very interesting presentation was titled Bringing Clarity to Complexity. I know recently I've read a lot about challenges to SWIFT as the principal network, and also challenges to the US dollar as the principal payment currency in the world. Is life going to become more complicated, do you think?
Let me put it this way. With all the technical inventions we have, sometimes you need to make sure that you get not overrun by all these things. That's one. Of course, you need to take out the complexity, and this is our term, our saying within Serrala, that we take out complexity. Things like SWIFT, and I worked for SWIFT, so I can say I was responsible for SWIFT for a certain area as well. It's necessary to have that because not everywhere you can work with other channels like EBIX or host-to-host or APIs, which came up again. And also we think API is a new thing. It's not. It's there for like 30 years already, but it just came up because of PSD2. So all these connectivity things, they all have their eligibility. They need to be there depending on the environment of the corporate. and also depending on the technical capabilities of the banks.
Well, it's a fascinating subject. I think we just scratched the surface, but thank you very much for that and for an excellent presentation. And if you'd like to know more about payments as a service, do contact ACTA or Serrala. Thank you again, Thomas.
Thanks, Graham. My pleasure.